WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. It is baseball season. I'm not going to ignore hockey or basketball or the Masters or the Liars Luncheon in the draft, but once we get into opening day here, I love getting my baseball mob on and all my buddies that are out on the road doing stuff and say, what do you think of the Cubs? What do you think of the Orioles? Barry Bloom has been covering baseball since I was a little one. I don't want to date him too much, but he is a young old-timer at MLB.com. He's out on the West Coast these days chasing around that cactus, and I'm sorry I missed him out in Mesa, Arizona at Sloan Park last week when I was out there for the NFL owners meetings. But he's running around covering baseball, and we love having him on. He is Boom Ski out on Twitter, and you can find him out there as well as at MLB.com and everywhere baseball journalism is served. Happy New Year to you, Barry Bloom. It's another year and a whole new set of 30 different dramas and romances unfolding right now, right?
Right, another happy opening day.
Well, I mean, you're out in the desert. We're here in Baltimore. We're trying to figure out how the Orioles are an improved lot from last year. I mean, that's a disappointing part for me as the season opens and big victory with Trumbo and all that stuff. I'm just wondering where the pitching is. I mean, I like to see improvement from last October, not sort of holes in the Swiss cheese that you can pick through and say, they probably don't have enough pitching. But that's what I'm hearing from most people, and that's what I believe with the Orioles.
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. I mean, they finished the season last year. I thought, Buck did a pretty good job patching together a very bad starting rotation last year. And, they lost Tillman for a period of time at the end of the season last year. And now they've opened the season without him. And, Gallardo's gone. And they haven't really brought in any replacements. So, I mean, they've got the good bullpen. They've got the great closer. And they're really porous in their starting rotation. And it just seems that with the money they gave Davis, that there's no money out there to go out and get anybody else at this point.
Yeah, and then Machado's coming up. But, I watched the Braves play the other night against the Yankees. They had that opening ceremony and showing off the cool, the little places out in the outfield where you can put your beer down and it stays ice cold out in Atlanta where the sun is shining. And I said, man, they got Bartolo Colon and R.A. Dickey. And, look, I'm not a guy buying 42-year-old pitchers or buying much on that. But, boy, this is a team that could have used one of those guys, right? I mean, and I know that they're not cheap. You don't rent them for $2 anymore. But, I look around at veteran guys and the Doug Fisters that they've let go by. There is a lot of that out there, and it seems to fare better than your Mike Wrights and your Tyler Wilsons and, running around trying to bring up guys from Norfolk to pitch.
Well, I mean, really what the Braves did was just sign these guys as stopgaps for people who are coming up from the minor leagues. I mean, they've got prospects that they feel are going to be very good and are coming, and they just needed to have people to spot check the rotation this year, but that's not going to make them competitive either. I mean, you make the decision here where, look, there are only two really good teams in the National League East, the Mets and the Orioles. And the other three teams are, really in different places where, they're, trying to compete. And I think the Marlins were really on the verge, but, the death of Fernandez last year really sets them back for 5 years, if not longer. And they're never going to really replace him. And so, the Braves betted the franchise over the course of the last few years, saving money to get ready for the new ballpark. And they're probably 2 or 3 years away. And the Phillies are nowhere at this point. Now, the problem with the Orioles is that if you look around baseball, every division really, except maybe the AL East and the AL West, have gimmies in your schedule, when you're playing within the division. And in the AL East, you really have no gimmies. You're playing a tough game every day. Even Tampa, which is like the bottom of the division, is capable of beating a good team any day it goes out and plays. Now, whether that equals a 500 record over the course of the season, it's probably not going to happen because they don't have enough depth. But they're still a tough team to play. And then the rest of the 4 teams in the division playing 19 games against each other are going to knock each other off. But look at the Central right now. You know, you have the Indians and the Tigers at the top of the division, and then you have White Sox, Twins, and Kansas City, and the Tigers and the Indians are going to feed off these teams, playing so many games against them during the course of the year. It really does create an imbalanced schedule and an imbalance towards the wild card at this point. And you know, you look at if the Indians stay healthy, they are better because they added Encarnacion. They've got all their pitching back. They've got Andrew Miller for a whole season. And this is what the Orioles are competing up against in the American League at this point.
Barry, it's amazing how much value has been or diminished, I would say, in power hitting. And I looked up and down the Toronto statistics from last year in the Orioles, and it had been, months. I mean, I go through it day by day in season. When the season's over, I'm not sitting around in December tearing through the Blue Jay stats. And I looked at the strikeouts, the home runs, the walks. Not just, but these two teams are shining examples of just trying to beat the snot out of the baseball. Not a lot of singles, not a whole lot of doubles, not a lot of stolen bases. This station-to-station thing that the Orioles are doing with the beer league softball thing. And you see guys like Upton, who hit 20 home runs last year, a guy like Alvarez hit 20 home runs last year. No one wants guys that hit 20 home runs that strike out 150 times a year. It feels like those guys are a dime a dozen, and they sit out on the market now, where it used to be grow the arms, buy the bats. Guys that are 20 home run hitters in the major leagues can't get jobs. It's weird, right? I mean, it's really changed from a power perspective for what teams want and where they put the value that they're going to spend money in the market.
Well, I mean, and plus the fact is that, Melvin Upton is being paid by the Padres not to play. I mean, and that contract that the Braves gave him years ago, which is one of the worst in history, because Melvin Upton hasn't performed. Yeah, he may have had a halfway decent season last year, but his track record since he left Tampa Bay has just been terrible. So, and no team has to sign them, or because they don't have to worry about spending any money on him. The whole thing is a weird dynamic of the fact that you sign teams are shying away from signing guys like Upton and power hitters, period, for long-term contracts. And the Orioles, basically, you throw in Davis, but they also spent the money to bring Trumbo back, but they're not spending any money on pitching, which essentially wins for you. I mean, if you look at the Cubs last year, if they don't make that trade with all their prospects for Chapman, they probably don't win the World Series. I mean, Chapman was a huge part of what they did in the postseason and in the World Series. And they're probably going to wind up having to do it again because they're stocked. I mean, really, the whole way baseball is being run right now, you're really not getting to the core of it. The core of it is not, how much money you spend. It's how you spend that money. And how you spend to build the major league club at the same time you're stocking the minor league system. And what Theo did with the Cubs is a great example of just doing it the right way. Because when he came in, he traded Dempster and a number of veterans for either younger players and he used his high draft picks to pick guys like Baez and Bryant. He didn't waste those picks. And now you look at where the Orioles are, and you look at where the Cubs are, and the Cubs are in a situation. I saw them a lot. I saw a lot of their kids. They've got a wave of kids in AAA who could be all playing in the major leagues right now, and organizations like the Orioles don't. I mean, the Yankees, with the trades they made last year and the people that they've developed, are starting to have people coming too. And even they've got pitching coming up from single A and double A now. They've got a kid, Jordan Montgomery, who they can bring up, at some point to Boyd, the back of the rotation, who's pretty darn good and had a good spring training. This is what you have to do. And if your baseball operations is not good enough to stock your system, minor league system, you're in sad shape because you need those guys to either fill spots at the major leagues or to trade for veterans who are out there who can really help you if you're in a spot to win.
Well, it's the development part of it, right? It's identifying the right talent, but when you bring in a young player, how do you get them to the big leagues? And certainly for all the arms, every organization has some level of pitch counts, innings, how many, doing it our system, throwing our way on our days to try to get them to the big leagues with varying results, right? I mean, right now everyone's going to sing the praises of the Cubs. I would agree that one of the reasons I don't love the Orioles is if any of their position players gets hurt, who's coming into play? I mean, they don't have prospects, position prospects anywhere in this organization.
Well, I'm not saying the praises of the Cubs as far as bringing their as developing pitchers. I mean, their entire starting rotation came from elsewhere. I mean, that's the thing about the Cubs. I mean, they've got their guys who they developed from the minor league system, but, I mean, really, Arrieta came from the Orioles. Lester was a free agent signing. Hendricks was from somewhere else. Lackey was from somewhere else. And they're, the guys who were competing for, the fifth spot, are from somewhere else. And their bullpen is from somewhere else. I mean, really, you look at their team, Rizzo they used a prospect, Cashner, to get Rizzo. They got Addison Russell from the A's. They have Montero, they signed as a free agent, and he was from the Diamondbacks. I mean, they're full of people good guys who they got around the system, and then to develop those key young players, who have been, tremendous for them. It's just really a mixture of doing it, really getting whatever your organizational philosophy is together, getting it intact. And if you look at it and say, if the Red Sox had done that with Theo would still be there, and the Red Sox would be better. Even though they won 3 World Championships in 10 years, it wouldn't have been with this constant changing of managers, coaches, general managers, players. I mean, there was only one guy who was a consistent between those 3 clubs, and that was Ortiz. Otherwise, they were predominantly different clubs. When they signed Theo, Ricketts basically said, I'm going to stay out of this, and I'll work on the ballpark, the neighborhood, business operations, the fan experience, and you do the baseball operations. Whatever you say is the right thing to do. And now you see the result. And Boston didn't do that. Their ownership meddled in everything. And so it all starts from the top down, just like in Baltimore. It starts with Angelos. You have a warring factor there between Duquette and Showalter, who really don't get along with each other, but are making the best of it. And then, everything falls into place along the line, with that.
And Brady Anderson apparently runs around and does whatever he wants, too.
Well, yeah, whatever.
He is Barry Bloom. He is Boomski out on Twitter. You cover the Yankees for a long time. This is a different version of the Yankees, and they're sort of the sleeping giant there, dare we say, after getting our butts kicked up there for the better part of the last 25 years, that this is a really sort of incubator period over the next 18 months while they save money, get younger, and load up for whatever Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, Trout run that they're going to try to go on in a couple of years from now. You sort of see it brewing. I mean, they're going to spend some money. They're going to have that money. But I don't think they're going to be paupers here over the next year or two. I think they can be more competitive this year than people believe they're going to be.
Well, with them, it just comes down to their starting pitching. And, that was illustrated on Sunday with Tanaka. And I read that it was the worst opening day start for any Yankee pitcher in history. I mean, you just can't have that. I mean, they're back with Tanaka, CC, and Pineda, and they also made like the Orioles, made no additions to starting pitching, whatsoever for this season. And I think they've got enough offense, at this point, and they've got, we'll see what Sanchez does now that the league has adjusted to him, and he has to adjust back after what he did last year. And we'll see if Judge can play over the long term. They've already lost Austin with a broken foot for who knows how long. So, I mean, their young player that goes for Gregorius for a month with a sore shoulder, and we'll see how they compensate at this point. But I think the interesting factor of this season, which mostly people don't talk about, and for whatever reason has gone under the radar, and I'm really surprised in New York that it has, this is Girardi and Cashman's last season. They don't have any. Their contracts will be evaluated at the end of the year. The Yankees do not extend contracts in the middle of the season. That's the way Steinbrenner works. And if the Yankees don't make the playoffs this year, I can see that this run in the Bronx for those two guys is going to be over because they've had a long leash to get this right. And the thing that frustrates me ungodly about the Yankees, and full disclosure, growing up in the Bronx, I'm a lifetime Yankee fan, and I'm probably harder on them than anybody because of it. And you look at the analysis of the Yankees is that they're never truly bad. Every year it's 83, 84, 85 wins. This is where it's been since the core four all went by the wayside one by one. Rodriguez's career ended, and they've had to finally make the transition into this period. So the question for me is, how do you get from 84 wins to 91 or 92 to win the division, which is what won the division last year? And you're talking about 6 or 7 wins. And it doesn't seem to be that difficult to analyze the situation. They're a team that relies highly on metrics. Figure out metrically what it's going to take to win 7 more games and change your balance within the division. Now, last year, no matter what Cashman says, and I've had this discussion with him, my argument was that if they had Chapman in April because he was suspended and they opened the season 8-16, or they had either Chapman or Miller in September, they would have won the division. I can earmark at least a dozen games where Chapman and or Miller at the end would have made a huge difference, and 7 of them are in April that Chapman would have made a difference. Now, the Yankees opened last year, with that 8-16. If they had opened at 500, they wouldn't have been chasing their tails all season trying to get back to 500. And that's what they did for the whole first half of the season. Every time they got back to 500, they'd lose another 3 or 4 in a row and fall by the wayside until they were swept by the Rays down in Tampa right before the trade deadline. A-Rod struck out 4 times in what was really the game that was destined to get him out of Major League Baseball. And then Steinbrenner was there watching it, and he just approved Cashman to clean the house out. And I think Cashman made a mistake by trading both of those relievers. Chapman I could understand because he was a free agent. They asked him if he wanted to resign. He said no, he was going to go to free agency, and they talked then. So that was a no-brainer. But trading Miller at the $8 or $9 million a year they had him at was just ridiculous. And I don't know what the Cleveland prospects are going to do over the course of the time. Frazier is supposed to be a good one. We'll see. I'm not a big prospects guy when it comes to this stuff. As you point out, most of them don't make it. So you have to have a lot of them. You have to have a lot of guys who you've earmarked who are possible major league material, and you know that a very small percentage of those people are going to make it through the wickets and get to the major leagues and have an impact. So to me, if you had a chance to win, which I think they decided at the trade deadline they didn't, and then all of a sudden the new kids came in. Girardi did a great job managing them. It went to the end, and on September 15th last year, the whole division was like 4 or 5 games apart from each other, and the Yankees went into Boston with a chance to really make a move, and Betances blew the game in Boston, and the season was over. So, I mean, you look at every organization, you look whether it's Diamondbacks, Padres, Orioles, Yankees, Cubs, Red Sox, we were talking about most all of these teams. It all starts from the top down, and a philosophy that they have to develop within the strengths and means of their own organizations to be able to compete. And if they don't stick with it, and they don't define it correctly, and no matter how much money you throw at it, it's not going to work. I mean, the Yankees are on no austerity program. Their payroll is still $200 million.
He is Barry Bloom. He is Boomski out on Twitter as well as at MLB.com. Cubs going to win this thing, Barry? Or are you bullish on them? Who was your World Series pick?
You know what? I'm very bullish on the Indians and the Cubs getting through it all again and playing each other in the World Series. I know that doesn't happen very often anymore, and I think the last time it did happen was was the Yankees and the Dodgers playing against each other back-to-back in the 70s. So I just think, considering the windows they're in, the talent they have, what I've already said about the Cubs and Indians, they're the two strongest teams still in baseball. Now, there are so many variables and things that can change during the season. You know, who knows how it's going to filter out. But, you know, just sitting here looking at it and watching both of the teams a lot during spring training, the Cubs more than the Indians, I look at that happening. And then you get to the World Series, and it's going to be the same thing again. It'll probably come down to the last pitch of the last game. And, you know, I called the World Series last year. I called every game right except for the last game because I thought the Indians were going to win. And again, I said it went down to the last pitch. So I'll call the Indians over the Cubs this year.
He is Barry Bloom, Boomski. Love having him on the program and following him around. Sorry I missed you amongst the cactus out there in the desert. And I wish they'd move the Padres to the American League East so we could get some free victory. Barry, how many they might not win 60 games, right? I mean, they're going to lose 100 games, right?
Right. Well, you know, concluding this because I have to run. I've been joking about this all year, all spring, that I wish there was like European soccer-style relegation in Major League Baseball because the Padres should be playing AAA this year. And then, you know, there's a responsibility to that. In England, if you're the bottom three teams in your league, you drop down to the next league for the next season. And there are three of them. And if you don't build your program back, you could get mired in the lowest league, there, you know, forever. And so, you know, if you make mistakes, bad decisions, the team plays poorly, you don't play at the premier level. And I think the Padres are a good example of that. The Diamondbacks are another one. The Twins are another one. They should be playing at AAA and then having to, you know, convince the fans that, hey, this is great. You know, come to see the Padres play Salt Lake City on a Friday night. Yeah, okay, let's see how that works.
Barry, back in 2009, the Orioles would have been in the New York Penn League by then. Hey, man, I appreciate you you coming on and having some fun with us. Take care out there. Wear some sunscreen. We'll see you soon, pal, okay?
All right, thanks. Sorry I missed you out here, too.
Cancer survivor and a rock star at MLB.com, Barry Bloom, joining us here. A wealth of information, a fountain of baseball knowledge there for you. Boomski, that's SKIE, out on Twitter. Barry Bloom at MLB.com. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device. Just download the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear. The morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That's powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. No problems there. And, of course, Breaking news happens first on our WNST text service. That's all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Our trip to London is up and running. You can email me that anytime. I'll get you $100 off if you email me. You've been on another WNST road trip. We're trying to get Green Bay, Nashville, Minnesota, and wherever the Raiders are playing. Strange as that sounds. Together. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and streaming live on Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.